Hey everybody, welcome to the 9th edition of the FreeFuse Sessions. Today's guest is Suzette West. She is the founder of Wild Hearts Rising and the A Player Alignment Accelerator. She's been in real estate for 27 years with some initiatives currently right now for helping house the homeless. And her focus is on helping business leaders create an empowering workplace culture to really build an inclusive workplace for everybody at every level of a company. And her objective is to co-create empowering business cultures with folks like yourselves who might be entrepreneurs. So Suzette, if you want to go ahead and give a quick introduction about yourself, we can go ahead and hop right in.
Thank you, Mike. Nice to be here, and thank you for having me. Yes, I've been in real estate originally, is where I started, and yeah, time just flies. But now I'm on a mission. Me and my team, we are on a mission to raise the bar on what it means to be an A player. It's not just about being the best at what you do. It's also about being the best human you can be, a human that is kind and just keeps that at heart, even through the tough times, which can make it very challenging when things get tense, which they often do.
Absolutely. And, from what you've seen for a lot of these organizations and, I've always looked at the aspect of crucial conversations. I don't know if you might have read that book, but one of the favorite books that I've actually read that I think really incorporates the idea of emotional intelligence. When you kind of work with companies and help build them up, what are some of the things that you see are really blind spots that folks have, which maybe they think they're good at emotional intelligence, but you see as a commonplace pitfall that a lot of folks have?
Well, I think the most common pitfalls is not being emotionally aware of oneself. So we tend to check out and we start we start going into routine mode, which means everything we do is pretty much like a routine, automated. So the biggest roadblock is when one becomes emotionally dysregulated. Because when we are emotionally dysregulated, that means we're having a stress response. And when the stress response happens, it closes us off from the executive thinking capacity that we have. It shuts our access off to that. So it's really in our own best interest to learn the tools that relax that stress response so that that executive thinking capacity doesn't close on us, and so we can keep it open, and so we can make informed decisions based on informed intuition and not be in a state of stress, because that affects the decisioning process, and that's not always in our best. We're not at our best during those times. So
Yeah. Absolutely. And, one of the things that I actually find really interesting about this concept, especially when you feel like your emotions are kind of like in overdrive, is that decision-making capability and that faculty of yourself can really get shut down. And for those folks out in the audience who have been watching March Madness, for example, you watch, for example, somebody who might have made a routine play, but due to the heat of the moment, that you're possibly having a situation where you could be eliminated from this tournament. You see people making a lot of silly mistakes, things that they would never have done if it was just a regular game, right? And I liken it to the decision-making faculty that we have. When people are under a lot of duress and a lot of stress, I feel like they're unable to make the right decisions that can help their organization excel at any level. So, when it comes to really helping, wade through difficult emotional problems while you need to be the head of your organization, what are some of the things that you almost suggest as a way that someone could almost decompress get themselves into a headspace that would allow them to make proper decisions that for the benefit of their people.
Yeah, so one of the things that really helps is when we build in breath breaks. So, and you can do this anywhere. You can do this with your eyes open, but there's a tool called heart focused breathing that really helps to turn down the volume of stress. It's a tool that was introduced and created by the Heart Math Institute. And I'm happy to walk you through how, what that looks like. And it would just we could just take about a minute, and I can run you through it and you can experience it yourself. But all you got to do is, focus your attention in the area of the heart. Big deep breath. Focus the attention in the area of the heart. And imagine the breath is flowing in and out through your heart. Breathing deeper and slower than normal. So you might do 5 seconds on the in breath, 5 seconds on the out breath, or whatever is comfortable to you, but slow that breath down and imagine it flowing in and out through your heart. And now activate a sense of inner ease. And as you breathe in through the heart, breathe in inner ease. And as you breathe out through the heart, breathe out inner ease. And let's just breathe for just a few seconds. Breathing in inner ease and breathing out inner ease. And when you're ready, open your eyes and come back to the room. And this is what you can do throughout the day. You can do it with your eyes open. You can maybe go into a quiet place and actually close your eyes and give yourself some space. But this is what I call building in breaks. And it's a really empowering tool when you're in the midst of change, because change is very chaotic, whether it's good or bad. So you can easily get burnt out by good things happening as you would by bad things happening. It's the same, stress response is change is chaotic, change is stressful. So when we are in the midst of a big change, there's going to be times when we have to build in breaks for ourselves. And that's what we do. We breathe, build in breath breaks, just to get yourself back in your body and out of your head for a minute. And it just really gives the nervous system a break from the constant anxiety, which is what deteriorates our nerves.
Yeah, no, that was great. And it's funny, I'm actually familiar with the heart math. I don't know if I forget if it's the length of a book or if it's like a kind of like a small pamphlet. I haven't read it in a bit, but it was so interesting because I feel like there's a part of that I feel like really speaks to being able to kind of slow yourself down. And then there's a certain energy I feel like towards when you're really on the go. There's a certain energy when you're anxious. There's a certain energy when you have joy. There's a certain energy when you have like sadness. And I feel like those all also reflect through the physiological part of what you do. And I feel like a lot of people really aren't as much tuned into their body because they're really stuck here. They're really stuck in their own head and unable to get outside of that to feel what is exactly existing around here. And it's why I'm a huge practitioner of meditative practices, because to me, taking that step to give yourself silence in the day is, I think, one of the most crucial steps. Even if you're just looking at it like, oh, it's just going to give me mental health, I think it's a crucial step for any leader to have. And getting in touch with that is just such an important aspect, I feel like, of getting in touch with yourself and who you are and how you can be better for the folks around you.
Yeah. Part of transforming culture. I mean, for a long time, culture has been a nebulous term, that kind of a soft, hard to really grasp concept. I mean, you technically know what it is, but you don't really understand what's really happening in culture. Culture is just the collection of all the attitudes, beliefs, personalities within a group. And when there's a lot of clashing personalities, when there's when everything is just kind of willy-nilly, you really don't know what's going on in your culture. The undercurrents are just kind of, just doing whatever. And without intentionally taking the initiative to, what does an inclusive culture look like for me? What do I want my inclusive culture to look like? And then in that process, also start to engage the feedback of the people who are really on board with bringing that change. Because if there's resistance, that has to be dealt with before you start to, these are all the things you have to work out. What's the opposition? What is the challenges? What are the barriers? How are we going to resolve those issues? That's all part of the roadmap that is individual to each company's desired culture, which is going to be different. One company's idea of inclusive culture is going to be different than another company's version of it. So every company's idea of inclusive culture is going to come from the founder. And then the founder decides, well, this is the kind of culture I want, and then have to become an embodiment, become a model of that culture which they want to co-create. And then they must also have a plan to not just embody and model, but also that means also stepping up as mentor. It also means stepping up as coach. It means also stepping up as trainer for the rest of the people in their organization. How that rolls out is going to depend company by company, founder by founder. But ultimately, alignment is the last phase. You've got to, first of all, you have to awaken that inner personality that's going to come up and stand and be that change. Then you have to go through learning about your inner battery. What we just did is how we recharge our inner batteries. So if we're not recharging our inner batteries on a regular basis, then the batteries run low. So you got to learn that. Then you gotta hook up that inner GPS, because you got to follow that informed intuition. If you're not trusting your informed intuition, you're not going to pick up the signal for that vision. that you want to co-create. Because when you're tapped into your vision, it calls you. Like, Mike, your project, it calls you. It says, I need this, you just instinctively know what it needs next. And it's because you have a line, you are tapped into the vision of what you're creating. So we have to do that for the culture, for a culture. So it goes individual, relational, and then collective, but that's the third phase. And that doesn't start until the leader is they've got the inner battery thing. They know how to be resilient. They've got their resiliency built up, the muscle. They've got their inner GPS. They're in tune with what they want. They have a really clear picture of the kind of inclusive culture they want to create. And this is a process. It's a process of discovery. It's a process of internal exploration we can't skip over to really get to that sustainable result that we want.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that really stuck out to me with what you said was, first of all, we start with the one, and then we're able to make it a more collective experience. But even having that sort of tuned in vision, right? And it's like, if you don't get in tune with yourself, you don't actually know how to have the intuition of, how to be better. And I'll give you an example, right? I think that, for example, a lot of folks when they're first getting started out, whatever level they're at, right? Let's just say you're trying to build something for the first time on your own. I think a lot of people, they get scared of listening to the intuition because they feel like sometimes they don't know enough, especially the first time people. And even myself, right? When, you're first getting started off with something, even what we were doing with FreeFuse, I would sit there and think to myself, okay, like, am I doing the right things? And I felt like I was defining it too much by what other people had as success before, and not really fine tuning it and allowing the intuition of what my vision for what this could be, what everything could be built as, really inform a lot of my discovery process. And I think that one of the challenges I feel like, some folks have is to listen to that when they feel like they don't have the track record, because they just don't feel like, well, where am I basing this out of? And like you've said, it's just so much more powerful to allow yourself to, become in tune with that. And then, equally as much, once you are, and even talking about my own experience, once I felt like I was in tune with that intuition, I felt like getting buy-in was a lot easier, right? Because, like, in fact, it was coming from an authentic place. Like, I wasn't trying to just reproduce someone else's model. I wasn't trying to, say, oh, someone else did this, therefore let me do this. Like, there's things that you can obviously draw inspiration from, and obviously be data driven about what you find out in the marketplace or in the feedback you get or out there in the world. But there's also a certain level of, there are things that just don't one-to-one fit into what your model is going to be. And you really have to almost sort of blaze that path yourself, in a sense, and really trust that that intuition is telling you to move in this direction. But so many people just don't. So I find it really great that, a lot of what you've, talked about here incorporates a lot of those really, really important elements to allow people to find that part of themselves.
Yeah. The way that I started, I started my coaching journey in 2017. And I spent a lot of that time just really honing my chops, training and up leveling my skills, and really, honing my craft. But it wasn't like I knew what I was doing. I was good. I was a good coach, and I was getting a lot of great results. But that connection to the why, the vision, that was always missing. And that was when I finally tapped into that, the resonance of it, you hear it in my voice. I'm not, there's no murkiness about what I'm here to do. Like, culture matters. It matters because it has a devastating effect on the human psyche and nervous system. It hurts not only children, but it also hurts adults. And I lived through that. And my life was hard because of it, because I was on the wrong side of that for a long time. So I can speak to that. And I can also speak to the leader position, because oftentimes there is a disconnect between people and leaders. So it's really important to have that perspective that can balance between the two, so that, because there's not all this person's responsibility and it's not all that person's, there is a mutual responsibility to deal honorably with each other. Okay. What are the issues and how can we compassionately work through them? How can we suspend judgment so we can allow a third alternative to emerge? Okay. We're not seeing a lot of that right now. We're not. And that's what I have to speak more on, because it's such a need right now for that. But that's at the heart of culture, is getting that anchor to go in and set the anchor. That is the leader. They are setting the model. They are embodying what they are wishing to co-create, because then they will be able to calibrate their people. They'll be able to one by one become mentor, coach. And it's not just about performance at work. We have to look at them as whole human beings. So they might, do a good job for us, but what are their aspirations? Like, what other things feed them? What are their aspirations aside from work? What are their aspirations for contributing? What is the impact they want to make in the world? Like, these are important things too. Encouraging them to live a balanced life, right? How you doing with your exercise? How you doing with it's really caring about people and really giving them a chance to contribute and feeling like they matter. Because when you treat a person like they don't matter, when you diagnose them, oh, they're just a blah, 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 that is not kind, and that's not constructive. And that is also not mutually respectful. So there is a discernment needed, like, for leaders to know, like, okay, I'm stepping up, but I know that my people, they also have to do some stepping up. It's not just all the leaders stepping up. It's stepping up in a way that encourages others to buy into the vision. And as a part of creating that vision and making that vision happen together, everyone's got to step up. Yeah. Everyone's got to step up. And that's part of the process.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there.
No.
And I feel like that, is such a contribution towards what people are doing, because if, you see the sort of cascading nature of where you are as a leader and how it really affects how, everyone, sort of perceives the, everyday work that they do. Right. And, like, I think that even as, leaders and, folks in that position, becoming really aware of sort of what you wear on your sleeve every day, right, is like such an important aspect. Speaking of some of that why, I know that you've obviously started the, real conscious development of the A Player Accelerator, right? And so, I'm, of course, as someone who's always curious about the whys, right? I imagine that a lot of what we've talked about here has been incorporated into the A Player Accelerator, but I'm curious, when you were, really trying to get the A Player Alignment Accelerator up and running, or just even had the initial idea for it, where was it along the line that you said, what, this is going to create so much value for folks, we're going to really build better organizations? Where did it have the click in your mind, like, I'm ready to take the plunge here and I'm ready to build up this accelerator program for folks to really become in touch with a lot of what you've talked about?
So the A Player Alignment Accelerator really came into clarity just this like last year. And it happened during a very triggering event at a business conference I was attending. And what happened, it brought back a repressed memory of when I was 7 years old. I was crying at the lunch tables. I had just been rejected by a group of kids. 1 minute, we were playing and having fun and being kids. And the next minute, they're all huddled in front of me. I'm the only one standing on the outside watching them, and they're whispering amongst themselves. And then they send out this little girl who was supposed to be my friend, and she was crying. And she said to me, I can't be your friend anymore because they won't be my friend too. And at that point, I was like, wow, like what's wrong with me? And like something happened to me that day. Not to mention I was, I was an empath. I mean, I am an empathic. I was born empathic. So I'm an empathic child. So everything I feel, I'm feeling very big. And I just totally felt rejected, like something was wrong with me. And what it did something to me. It first of all became a repressed, I just forgot it. It just got buried, but it wasn't gone. It kept showing up in my life at different points, in different relationships. It really damaged my trust for people and social situations. I became so seriously socially anxious, like I couldn't be in a crowd of people for very long without having to run to the bathroom and sit in the stall to just breathe and get a break from the crowd. That's how bad it was. And when I encountered bullies, or when I encountered cliques that were bullies, it just, this pressure I would just feel come out of nowhere. And this particular thing that happened last year was the ultimate pressure cooker blow up that was so much that it juggled back and brought back that memory that I finally realized I experienced a childhood trauma regarding culture, regarding group dynamics. It affected me. Culture matters. And all the tools that I learned as a heart math trainer most definitely apply. And it brings back my activating the heart of teams training that I took with heart math. And it just brought all of that into clarity, all of the energetics, all of the undercurrents. We don't realize that we're all feeding the field. And when you're talking about a group situation, everybody is feeding this collective field, not understanding what they're feeding the field. So there could be a lot of really negative, stressful individuals that are just draining the life out of the group. And maybe they're not leaving because maybe they're top producers, but they're top producers that kind of like crap on everybody else. So there's a cost to that person. So there's decisions like this that have to be considered. What is the impact on the collective undercurrents? Because if there's any kind of adversarialism, resistance, that is a sign to take a closer look and not gloss over anything, because it all comes back to bite you if you don't, identify all the sources of stress, the energy drains. Where are the energy drains in this environment, in this group? And take a really honest look. But before you can do that, you have to be able to look at yourself, look at your own things you have to work through. Because if we don't deal with our own stuff first, when we get into a collective situation, those things are going to come up and hijack the bus in stressful situations. And that's how you get blow ups. That's how you get the really ugly stuff that you see a lot of right now in today's world, in our world today.
Yeah, absolutely. And something you talked about, that I think a lot of people aren't really aware of is, what are the things that you're making a decision on right now that you have been in pain about, like previously, right? And I'll even give like a few examples of my own life, right? Like, and I see it after sometimes, like, you notice, like, why is it that I decided to do that, right? And it's kind of why, like, I've always looked at decision making as being such an important aspect. Like, there's decisions that you can make quickly, like, hey, what brand of peanut butter do I want to have, right? Those aren't things that really are colored by anything. But when you're thinking about things like, an important consideration for who to hire, or because that's really a team member, someone you're going to interface with, those are colored by all sorts of levels of experience, right? And so one of the things that I've seen, and it's something that I've appreciated about our own system that people have been facilitating to a great degree, is that there's actually a lot of folks utilizing FreeFuse to like help people make better decisions and really help build up, hey, what would you do in this scenario, or how would you approach this? Because like you said, sometimes things just happen in an automatic way. And so if we help people, I kind of look at it like a sports analogy. If you help people get the perfect practice, or help people find a way to be aware of some of the reasons why they do something, spreading awareness and allowing them to have almost like a, I wouldn't say always automatic, but having like an easier way to remember, oh, I should do this in this situation. Having the awareness of the situation, having the awareness of knowing how you feel about the situation, or feel about the decisions that you feel like are presented to you, is a good opportunity to really grow that aspect of yourself, right? And I feel like there's so much power in that awareness, because like you said, you'll find some of those, sort of tracks that, might say, hey, a while ago, this X thing happened, and it was not great, and I didn't feel good about it, and now I can draw it back to why I make today's decisions. And you can almost say, should people of the current time be paying for the mistakes of people in the past, because you want to sort of pay that back somehow? Maybe you got hurt, or maybe there was something where you felt like you looked dumb, and then in and of itself, you're now saying, well, someone like this who's coming to me with like a similar sort of situation, I need to treat them the same way, when it can be completely different. So I feel like allowing folks to become aware, allowing them to work on their decision making in any capacity, I feel like it's such a important element of not just building up yourself, but building up the organization as a whole. And I think over time just makes it a more effective, and even a much more inclusive organization, as a whole.
Yeah. So in coaching, there is a saying. So when I started going through my ICF training, because I'm pursuing an ICF certification. So we assume that all the answers, everything we need for our life to show up and do what we're born to do, what we're destined to do, everything is already in here. So with that trust, and that's another thing, it's learning to trust that intuition. That's a process. That's not easy. Not a lot of people trust themselves. And it's because we're not accustomed to coming from the inside. We're accustomed to judging, trying to conform to an outside perspective of what's considered perfect, or what's considered top of the game, or you're doing the right things. But when we start spending more time in self-reflection, and we start spending more time with the inner life that we have, certain truths become known. Like, what's true for me? What's true for me is that I believe that a culture can be inclusive, which means that everyone matters. Everyone knows how to lean into the challenges. And as so long as trust is there, we can move through any challenge and work through the problems together, because we trust each other. We trust that you have the best intentions and I have the best intentions, and we're going to work through this. That's trust. The minute somebody starts slinging mud or saying things that are just wrong or mean or just downright nasty, like that right there is not it's not helpful. It does nothing to solve any kind of problems. It just makes problems worse. Yeah,
absolutely. And one of the books that I've always really loved, it's like kind of a consistent read for what I do. It's called The Speed of Trust by Stephen M. Or it's by the son of Stephen Covey, right? Or Stephen R. Covey, Stephen M. R. Covey. And I remember picking it up one day, and it's Speed of Trust, right? And I was like, it's an interesting title. You start perusing through the book, and I felt like I couldn't really put it down. And it was so moving in a sense that I realize now, or at the time, I was kind of in the early stages of FreeFuse as a whole, and I realized like how important it was to build a lot of those good relationships, but more importantly to build the culture of trust. Like, we can all trust each other. We all know that we all know we have like our best interests built into what we're trying to do. And I felt like as an early stage organization, it was so important to have that, because I have countless founder stories of folks who their organization was great, the idea was great, the people couldn't trust each other, and it went under, right? And so I mean, or some of it was folks would just leave, and now there's like this aspect of people not being able to talk to each other or trust each other. And it's not to say that we haven't had our own issues with folks who come in and things like that, because sometimes people just aren't good fits. But I've always felt like the first thing to do is to grant an element of trust to folks, and trust that they're going to be able to get whatever work that we've asked them to sort of commit to done, right? And I feel trust is kind of like this two-way street of not only just giving your trust that someone can accomplish something, but also the other person providing you with their trust that you're not just going to take what they do for granted, take advantage of whatever efforts and work that they're doing. And I feel like allowing everyone to feel like we're all moving in the same direction together really instills that level of trust. And I feel like it's an underrated part of what people do. And I've seen more kind of like in, shall we say, toxic cultures where you have like somebody who has to micromanage everything that you do because they clearly don't trust that you're getting your job done. For example, like, looking at somebody and saying, oh, hey, like, you seem to be taking lunch like an extra 15 minutes, right? Like, and, and that happened like twice this month. And it's like, stuff like that, I feel like is all about, the level of trust that you have in folks. And so to me, I think that there's such an element of that is underlooked and underrated, that if folks really invested more time in learning about the people around them and learning to find ways to give them that trust, they would be a much more effective organization.
Yeah, and so that is the process of the hero in the A Player Alignment Accelerator, because there is a process of activating all the inner resources, the inner equipment that we're born with, the inner battery, the inner GPS, the inner hero, where we have to wake it up. Then in the second stage, now we're attuning to the inner self, the inner equipment. What is true for me? What do I want in an inclusive culture? What do I want it to look like for my company, for my people? And then it goes into attuning to people. Now you're just you're taking in information from the people. I know what I want. Now, what do my people want? What does my leadership team want? What does the people want? And then this is where you attune to the people. What is the desire of the people in the organization? And then we've got attuning to the vision, collective attunement. Now we're attuning into what the people want, what the leader wants, what the leadership team wants. Now the collective attunement is, okay, this is where the roadmap gets created. Okay, considering all of the constraints, what does our roadmap have to look like? And that's what we figure out in the collective attunement, the attuning to the vision, attuning to that, now that we know what that inclusive culture looks like, what is the roadmap? What are the barriers? What are the constraints? What are the roles and responsibilities? And how do we get there? What is the roadmap to get from where we are to where we want to be? And that is the attunement to the vision. And that happens in stage 2. Once all those first two stages are done, now you're ready to go through the process of alignment. And although I'm teaching them as stages, once all these steps are learned, they actually kind of go together and they kind of flow into each other. And it's less and less of a step-by-step thing, and it starts to become more of a fluid flow. You start to flow. One stage flows into the next. But yeah, so collective attunement is where you get the roadmap created, and it's specific to every organization. And then we start the process in stage 3, which is self-alignment. The leader is becoming the culture. The leader is attuning and calibrating themselves. This is what the people want. This is what we figured. This is what I want. Now I know how I have to show up. That has to happen. Then they go back into the organization, and now they have to be the mentor, guide, coach for each of their people on a relational level, because each person's going to require something different to get to the same place. So that is on the leader to figure that out and to work that out relationally. And then when the relational stuff, now we're working on the alignment to the vision. And now it's calling, because now we're all seeing the same thing. We're all moving in the same direction. We're seeing the same destination on the roadmap, and we all have our parts. We all have our roles. We all have our places, and we all know what to do. And we all have metrics that we own, right? So it's getting to that place that is a process. It doesn't happen in 3 weeks. It doesn't happen in 1 hour or a 3-hour masterclass. It takes time. It's a process, and it just takes leaning into it, working through it, taking it one step at a time. What is the next right step? And it's going to be different. It's going to be different for everyone. So really dropping in, learning how to seek that intuitive voice that is going to show you and tell you what's true for you. And then from that place, you just take the next right step. Where do I go from here? What is the next right step from here? And then don't overshoot the headlights. Just focus on the next right thing, because you overshoot the headlights, that's asking to get overwhelmed. You take too much information in too fast, you're going to blow a fuse. And that's how you that's how you burn yourself out. Because we only have so much resources in a day before we completely deplete ourselves and we burn out. And when we burn out, we are not going to show up as our best selves. So it's really important to take those breaks, like we were talking about earlier. Build in those breath breaks. Really check in. Where am I right now emotionally? Where am I right now? Always knowing where you are emotionally. Because the minute your body starts telling you you're tired, you got to be in tune with that. Honoring that. My body is tired. I'm stepping away now.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And what's funny about that is, like, I mean, I tell people, hey, you need to like keep track of your energy management. And I'm like one of the worst people about it because I'm just always on, right? I mean, early, early morning hours, late night, work, and just kind of like working throughout my day, right? And I mean, for me, it's really just about like having excitement about what we do, but like there is a healthy balance for all of it. So, I'm glad that you're, able to touch on all of those things. So I know that we're running to time here, and obviously you've given us this really, wonderful overview of your program and weaved it into, sort of what really is important to, how you feel like there can be some real changes about building more inclusive and effective organizations. But I wanted to give you the opportunity to, of course, share anything else that you maybe wanted to share with the audience, kind of, anything else that you think, you might want to promote, or something that you feel like is important as kind of like, sort of like a last note before we sign off here.
Yeah, so we have a website. If anyone wants some more information about the A Player Alignment Accelerator, the website is www.aplayer.academy. And that is the website if anyone's interested. We have a free mini training that we're working on. It should be up in the next couple of days or so, but we have a free mini training on step 7, which is self-alignment. So that'll be up soon, and yeah, just check it out.
Yeah, and also by the time this episode comes out, it'll probably be out actually. It's just so please don't wait 2 days after watching this. But and I'll make sure in post to actually put a link to the site just so that people can find you much more easily. But and all of this has been a fantastic discussion. I think that a lot of folks really just like to talk about nuts and bolts of like, how can I do X, Y, and Z? But there's a certain element of trying to make yourself, sort of get in tune with what you do that is going to truly color what you're, able to do as an organization. And that I feel like has allowed me, and contributed to my own success and like, the success of our organization. So I'm glad we were able to touch on a plethora of points. And I just want to say thank you for the time. I always appreciate talking with you.
Thank you for having me, Mike. And yeah, anytime, just anytime you need anything, I'm here to support, and happy to jump on anytime you're looking for a guest and want to talk about some other stuff. Always happy to.
Awesome. And for those of you taking the time to listen, we thank you so much today for your time, and we look forward to seeing you at the next FreeFuse Sessions. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.